Hey guys, Teresa here. Welcome back to my channel, Lost My Thread. I'm here today to share my 25 goals for 2025, including my accidental Make 9. It is the beginning of a new year and I am feeling very positive and optimistic about the year ahead. I am somebody who likes to give myself goals, objectives for the year of things I would like to do. I used to think of myself as like a very anti-New Year's resolutions person. I did not have any New Year's resolutions or goals for many years of my life, the vast majority. And I think that's because most of the time when I'd seen people make resolutions, it was usually some really unrealistic, completely changing your lifestyle kind of thing that was never going to be achievable. And then usually a couple of weeks into January, I'd see people just gradually giving up on their resolutions. And to me, that just felt like a waste of time. But also, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure to see it as a negative thing. And it wasn't my vibe. Things did change for me though in 2019 when I heard about the Gretchen Rubin idea from the Happier podcast of making a set number of goals for each year. So the first time I joined in with this, I made 20 goals for the year 2020. 2020 turned out a bit differently than all of us probably had anticipated at the beginning of the year. So 2021, I gave myself a break because I just needed to exist that year, and I'm sure you guys can appreciate that. But I have continued on with 22 for 22, 23 for 2023, 24 for 2024, and I have now created my 25 goals for 2025. The thing that is different about these types of goals is that they don't necessarily have to be big life-changing things. You can put those types of things on there. But I honestly see it just more as like suggestions of things that I would like to do throughout the year. Sometimes they're things I've been wanting to do for a really long time or things that I just haven't done for a while. And I want to just remind myself that that's something that I'd like to do this year. I really love putting these goals together. I know some of you guys join in as well. If you are joining in with this type of goal setting, I would love, love, love to hear any of the examples of the things that you're planning to do this year, or if this video inspires you to do it. The thing that was funny to me about this particular year, I was just putting down in a random order all the things I was hoping to do. And at one point, I noticed there were quite a large amount of sewing related goals on there. I don't always have that many sewing goals on there. And when I counted, I happened to have 9 that were sewing specific goals. And I realized that I kind of accidentally made a Make 9. So I decided I was going to put it together in that format. So the first 9 of these are my Make 9, and I will be sharing a little grid of them. I'll be talking about them on Instagram as well. The idea of a Make 9, if you guys are not familiar, is that it is 9 things that you want to make throughout the year. I quite often see this a lot in knitting, but definitely I see it a lot in sewing as well. The idea can be like a really specific project that you want to do. It might be either like a yarn or a fabric that you want to work with. It might be a technique that you want to try. There's so many different ways to do it. But I've been put off doing a Make 9 for similar reasons as the resolutions. I feel like most of the time I hear people talking about their Make 9, they're talking about how they feel disappointed in themselves that they haven't made enough of those things. And to me, that's just like, come on. I mean, for one, what are the likelihood at the beginning of the year I know 9 things I definitely want to make throughout the year? Because I make seasonal sewing plans, and even then I am changing my mind all the time. New patterns are coming out, new inspiration is coming at me. So I feel like the 9 things that I have, some are specific, some are more general, and I think it works. But I'm also not committing to doing these things. Again, I'm seeing them as like suggestions of things that I would like to do throughout the year. If I do them, I think I will enjoy them. And quite a few of them I've been sitting on for a while. So I feel like I've been wanting to do these for long enough that it's unlikely that my mind is going to change. So I'm going to run through these starting with the sewing goals. I will then talk a little bit about crafty, like sewing adjacent type goals. And there's a bit more of just like personal life stuff towards the end. I will be including chapters so you can skip around if you're not interested in particular bits. But let's get on with my accidental Make 9. Number 1 is to draft and sew my own sewing pattern. Now I have done this before for like skirts. I've done a variety of circle skirts, shirred skirts, elastic waist skirts, drawstring waist skirts. But I felt like it would be interesting to do it with a more complex garment. So being able to take my body measurements and then create something that is designed just for me, by me, to fit me, hopefully very well. I actually got this book last May for my birthday, if you guys can see. It's the Elise Alex Jewel made to measure book. So Elise Alex is the creator of By Hand London Sewing Patterns. The idea behind this book is the whole book is to teach you how to draft patterns for yourself. So there are some specific patterns in there, but there's also a lot of like optional hacking ideas and ways to change sleeves and necklines. So I think it's just really good inspiration in general. But what really intrigued me about this book is the majority of things I've seen of like a self-drafted, they're basically like boxy things that don't fit you anyway, and they kind of just hang. And I feel like the thing about this that was really interesting was that there's some quite fitted silhouettes. There's a blouse, there's trousers, there's multiple dresses. So I'm not necessarily committing to making everything in this book. I just want to make one of them that I feel like is a good and interesting challenge, and we'll have to see how we go. Number 2 is to embroider something on a garment. I have done embroidery various times throughout my life and I enjoy it, but I never actually put it on a garment. I have done embroidery for things like wall hanging here. This is beaded embroidery. I've also done embroidery on bags, which is really cool, really fun. But I like the idea of embroidering on a specific garment. I have some things within my Make 9 that may end up being part of this, but I kind of like the idea of just having some little small embroidered details, like, you know, like a portion of a dress or a blouse, which is what I've got the image of, but that's just an inspiration. I'm not necessarily committing to something like that. There's so many ways you can use embroidery and sewing, and I think it would just be a fun extra detail to make something really unique and really feel like me. Number 3 is to sew blue jeans. I don't think I've ever made blue jeans. I've made denim jeans before that were black, but I've never actually made blue jeans. Now, I'm not a huge blue jeans person. Before I was sewing all of my clothes, I didn't wear jeans loads, but I did have them and they were useful to have in my wardrobe. And I feel like there's something particularly satisfying and cool about being able to make your own blue jeans. To me, that kind of feels like, I don't know, there's like a tier, like a level of like, wow, I could make that. Because to me, that just really seems like something that you would buy. So for me, whenever I make jeans, I'm always really excited about it. And I really enjoy the process as much as like the finished garment as well. But I've had this idea in mind of wanting to make a pair of blue jeans with some really cool top stitching thread. So I've got a combination of like, it's like a red and a yellow top stitching thread. I want to use a combination. I've got like a general concept in mind. And I also have the denim. I bought some stretch denim from Guthrie and Ghani probably 3 or 4 years ago now. It's been quite a while and it's been sitting in my drawer just waiting to be turned into a pair of jeans. When I bought it, the intention was to make the ginger jeans by Closet Core because that was the ones that I was liking the style of. I now have decided that I'm going to go with the Jude jeans by Closet Core. I have made 2 pairs of Jude jeans and they are the trousers that I definitely wear the most. I love the fit, I love the shape, I love the high waist. I particularly like the patch pockets version, so that's like quite 70s style. They're also super easy to construct because of the patch pocket, so they're really like the easiest jeans I've ever made. I also will go with like the boot cut rather than the flared leg, even though I like the flared leg. I know that these jeans actually come together really quickly, so there's not very much stopping me. I've made the adjustments on the pattern, I know they fit me well, so I need to just go ahead and make myself some jeans. Number 4 is to sew a denim jacket. This is another one that's just been on my mind for a long time. I have always enjoyed wearing denim jackets whenever I've had them. I like them with trousers and skirts. I really love them layered over dresses. I know they're really good just like that transitional weather, either in the spring or the fall, even in like a cold summer evening, they're a great thing to throw on. I love the look of a classic denim style jacket. So we're talking like the panels at the front, the top stitching over the top, the yoke at the back. I will say that I have a fuller bust, and so to get something to fit me really well in that style is not that easy. I have had my eye for a while on the itch to stitch a tennis jacket. Atenus jacket. I don't know how you're supposed to say it, but I'll put it up on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. But it is a classic denim jacket, but it comes with multiple bust cup sizes. I generally do like itch to stitch patterns. I like their fit. I feel like they're generally good, well constructed patterns. However, I had purchased that pattern, intended to make it, and then Cashmerette came out with a jacket in their Cashmerette Club this month. Denim jacket. Again, multiple bust cup sizes, and Cashmerette probably do slightly have the edge for me with fit because my waist is a bit higher and that's how their patterns are designed. I have a slightly forward shoulder and they adjust for that in their patterns as well. So now I'm wondering whether I need to go with the Cashmerette one. One way or another, I'm not committing right now, and I'm kind of tempted to make a muslin of each just so I can see which I prefer, which makes me feel like I'm clearly a glutton for punishment, because why am I going to do that? I mean, I would be doing quick and dirty muslin. I wouldn't be doing all the top stitching, but just to get a look at them and get an idea. We'll see if I go that far. Now, I don't necessarily need to make this in denim. I probably would like to, but I need to find the right denim for that kind of thing. I feel like I'm quite picky and I wouldn't want to buy it online. I'd want to buy it in person. This is also where I'm considering maybe doing some embroidery. I feel like on the back yoke has some potential for some cool embroidery on there. And because it's going to be an enclosed yoke, I'll double check, but I would imagine it would be like a burrito method kind of thing where it's going to be covered over. My embroidery would be a little bit more protected. The benefit of that as well, if you do hand embroidery, I want to be very cautious about washing these garments. I wouldn't want to wash often, and if I did, I would do like a hand wash, be really careful. And I feel like jackets, you don't need to wash them loads, so it seems like a good potential, but we'll see. I may or may not do the embroidery, but I 100% do want to make a denim jacket. Which leads me on to number 5, which is to sew at least 3 Cashmerette Club patterns. So I am a paid subscriber to the Cashmerette Club, which is a subscription service. I get a free pattern every month. I pay for the all access membership, so I have access to all of their past patterns. And guys, it's a lot of patterns, and I'm paying for this. But I forget to use it. I forget to look there when I'm thinking about what to sew. And I feel like I want to make it more of a default. So I have a list of the sewing patterns that I have purchased, that I have the PDFs for, and I have a Trello account where they're all listed, but I don't have the Cashmerette Club ones on there. So usually if I'm thinking I want to make something, I'll check my Trello list, and if I don't see it, then I'll start looking online, looking at hashtags on Instagram, or looking on the fold line for patterns. But the Cashmerette Club patterns are not going to be on the fold line because they're not readily available, and it's a very specific thing. I wouldn't think to look for those things on Instagram for inspiration. So I feel like I need to make it more of like my first port of call. Check the Cashmerette Club to see if it's there, if I don't see it in my other pattern library. And obviously I can hack things, so it doesn't have to be exactly like that. But whenever I've made something from the Cashmerette Club, every single thing, 4 things that I've made from them, I genuinely love them. And they're some of my favorite things that I've made. So it's like, I need to just keep going, and I need to actually make the subscription worthwhile. I'm probably not the only person who is subscribed to a sewing pattern subscription and kind of forget to look at their patterns. So you guys remember as well, try to give yourself maybe like a minimum of things that you want to make from that club to make it worthwhile. And I feel like 3 is actually a pretty low bar. I feel like I should be able to achieve that. Number 6 is to sew a coat with big sleeves to fit over my big sleeved garments. I like a big sleeve, I like a balloon sleeve, and clearly that is not going anywhere, at least in my wardrobe. I'm continuing to wear dresses, blouses, tops, jumpsuits with a full sleeve. And as the winter time has come, it's become very obvious to me that I do not have a coat that is suited to this type of sleeve. I end up crunching my sleeve into like a normal coat sleeve, and when I take it out, it looks like an absolute mess. And so I need to solve that problem. The solution is not to stop wearing those tops because I want to wear them. The solution is to make my wardrobe fit my needs. Now, I've had a little look around to try and find a pattern that I feel like I like the look of. Generally, I like a more fitted silhouette, and I would ideally want a pattern with multiple bust cup sizes if I can get away with it. The one that I have been thinking about and considering is the Charm Patterns Princess Coat. So this comes with multiple bust cup sizes. I've never actually made a Charm Patterns pattern before, and I'm kind of curious to try their patterns. The thing I will say about this princess coat, I mean, it looks truly amazing. Honestly, it's like jaw-droppingly beautiful. The fit of it, the shape of it is fantastic. The sleeves are like next level big sleeve. They do actually have a lot of versions of this coat, so you can make it like more cropped. You can make a variety of sleeves, including sleeveless. So you do get a lot for this pattern, but I'm really particularly interested in the whole big sleeve. That is the point of it for me. But I find it quite difficult with Charm Patterns because the designer, I really like that she has quite a fun attitude towards her patterns, and I feel like she has a very like fantasy, dreamy, dress up style of the way that she designs her patterns and has photos for the patterns. But I have a difficult time imagining that maybe toned down, that's not quite so over the top and costumey, and I feel like I'm not quite sure if this is going to look quite ridiculous to wear on the day-to-day. Because I want this to be an everyday coat. I just need to think about whether this is the right one for me. If you guys have a good sewing pattern, or if you've had success or bad times with any other sewing patterns with a full sleeve, let me know. I can also, I know, hack a pattern to have a bigger sleeve, balloon sleeve, which I'm considering. So lots of things, lots of ideas are rolling around, but I clearly need a big sleeve for my coats because I'm wearing big sleeves and I don't want them to get creased up. I don't think it's that crazy. I need to just go ahead and do that for next winter. Number 7 is to make period pants or reusable pads. This is another one that I actually reached out to people on Instagram a good 3 years or so ago, asking if they had suggestions for like materials, techniques, patterns that they use for this type of thing. And I got loads of suggestions and I pinned them on my highlights on Instagram, and they basically sat there in my highlights reel, not doing a whole heck of a lot. I had good intentions, but it's just taken me a little while to get around to the idea of actually doing it. Because it's something that I would say is fairly labor intensive to like try things out and see what I like. I have to get some quite unusual materials to be able to do it. I found it off-putting. But honestly, I have been appreciating and using reusable period pants that I've purchased. I do have some reusable liners. They're not like good thick pads, but I do like wearing those when I have my period, particularly towards the end of the period when I'm kind of not quite full on, but I like to have a little bit of protection, a little bit of something. But I have issues with the ones that I can buy. For one, I just don't love the fit and the shape and the cut of all of those. But the other thing is, pads in particular, they can shift around. And if they're not in the right place, then they are basically not worth having. And so I've been debating whether or not there's a way that I can maybe make a period pad that can be secured into the underwear with either like snaps or Velcro, something along those lines, that I can then take off and change up for another one when I need to change them throughout the day. Now, I'd have to make them like these are specifically underwear for this purpose. And I don't know, it feels a little bit overcomplicated, but it could work. The benefit of the period pants is that you don't need anything to go in and out, and it's always there when you need it. You're always covered as long as you're wearing them. But I do find that personally, I like to change my pads regularly throughout the day if I'm using them. And I don't think it's very easy or practical to be changing a whole pair of underwear, especially quite thick ones, like bulky ones with period padding type stuff in there. So I'd wondered whether I could design something myself, maybe like a little pouch that I could roll them up in, so that way it's a little bit easier to change them over. I'm not quite sure what I want to do with this project. I will share more with you guys when I do, but all I know is I do want to make either period pants and or some type of pads that I can wash and reuse over and over. Suggestions for any patterns, materials, techniques, always very welcome. Number 8 is to make a Christmas apron. Now, I really love the month of December. I love the lead up to Christmas, the festive season, as you guys know, if you've seen any of my Vlogmas videos. And I really enjoy having things that are really specific for that festive season. So in November, I bought myself a Christmas mug, and the idea is that I would be using it during the month of December, and then it would get packed away with all of our Christmas decorations, and then next December, I will find it, rediscover it, and enjoy using it. It definitely brings me a lot of joy, and I know that these things will then last for quite a long time because I'm not using them every single day. I did think it would be fun to make myself an apron that is very specific to the Christmas season that will then get packed up with my Christmas decorations and come down every December, because at the end of the day, I do a whole heck of a lot of baking in December. I also do a lot of baking just generally, or cooking all the time, cooking more than baking on the day-to-day. And I like to wear an apron, and it will definitely be something I know will make me happy every time I put on that Christmas apron. I don't have specific ideas in mind. I've got an image of one with like red and green rickrack just to make it quite fun and festive. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with a Christmas apron as far as designing, but I definitely think it'll be a fun thing to make and to be able to wear every December. And number 9 is to sew with at least 2 fabrics that I've picked up at a fabric swap. So I have gone to a couple of fabric swaps now and taken home a fair few amount of things, and sometimes they end up just sitting in my stash, which is kind of defeating the purpose to me. You know, the idea is that we are bringing things into a fabric swap that we have, but we're not just in love with, and we're just not that excited to sew with. It can be quite difficult and tempting when you're there, and it's like basically there's tables of free fabric that you can then take home and put into your own fabric stash. But the problem is, if you do not sew it up, then you're just building your stash even more and you're not really helping or saving anything. So I want to make a point to be quite cautious when I am at fabric swaps to not take home anything that I'm not incredibly excited about. But also I need to use the things that I have picked up. So I have quite a few things, not loads, maybe like 3, maybe 4 pieces of fabric that I picked up at a fabric swap. One of them I decided I'm going to bring back to a fabric swap because, guys, I'm just not going to use it, and I know that I'm not going to use it. But the rest of them, I need to actually just get on and sew with them because it makes me feel, I wouldn't want to say guilty, but it makes me feel like the whole point of that was to give life to something that was just lingering in someone's stash. And I'm just continuing on that lingering. And I don't want to do it. I want to get these things sewn up. So I'm giving myself a minimum of 2 throughout the year from fabric swaps, but hopefully and probably I'll sew with more as well. Moving on then from my make 9, but still very much in the sewing category, is number 10, attend at least 3 sewing socials. So I attended my first sewing social in December. It was the Southern Sewing Social in the UK. I will put a link to the Instagram page if you want to look up more details of where it is and dates for it. I had such a good time. It's not something that I thought I necessarily would love doing because sewing, I'm very happy to just sit by myself and sew. I have had like get-togethers with some friends where we sew, but I feel like getting together with people that you don't really know, and quite a large amount of people all sewing and creating things in the same space, it has such a wonderful energy. It feels really positive. Everyone's really supportive and friendly, and I really did love it. So I do want to go back to the Southern Social, but I also want to try out some other ones. So I know that New Craft House in London also do a sewing social. I don't know, there might be other ones around to try as well. It doesn't really matter, I don't need a whole variety, but mainly I feel like I know I've enjoyed this experience and I want to do it again. I'm giving myself a minimum of 3. I may do more. The difficulty for me though is that quite often when I look at dates for those types of things, and certainly the next 2 that are coming up, I happen to be working on those days because I'm a midwife. I work, any day of the week, and quite often they fall on a weekend when I happen to be working. Just my bad luck, really. So I'm sure there will be some throughout the year that I'll be able to do. And if I can hit 3, I will feel positive and I'll feel like I'm meeting more people in the sewing community, more like live interactions, and it's really fun. Number 11 is to play with block printing. I have some stamps that I'm considering using, or I might try and make my own shapes. Block printing is something that I've always really admired. I think it's really fun, really cool, really effective. I don't have necessarily specific ideas of what I want to do with block printing. It would be fun to maybe make a garment. It could be something maybe I use on my Christmas apron. Not a bad idea. But main thing is I just want to try out some block printing on some fabric and see what comes from it. Number 12 is an easy one. I want to refresh my beeswax wraps. So I have made cotton fabric beeswax wraps, and the idea is that you use them to wrap up your food, to keep it safe, to keep it protected, to help it last longer. And I do find that it is better than plastic wrap for my food. It keeps it fresher for longer, and obviously it's also better for the environment. I'm not using as much like single-use plastic. But the problem with beeswax wraps or any of these types of wraps is that eventually it starts to kind of break apart and it's not going to adhere as well. And what you need to do to refresh them is just to put a warm iron over the top, not a hot iron, very just gently warm iron with the 2 pieces of parchment paper on either side of the wrap and just basically remelt the wax. I do have some spare wax if I need to top it up, but usually just have to remelt it. I made a whole video tutorial. It was actually probably my first, maybe my second or ever video on my YouTube about how to make and refresh your beeswax wraps. I'll put a link to it if you guys have not seen that. If you're interested, it's probably a longer video that needs to be. Bear in mind it was an early video, so be kind to me. But I will say that I love my beeswax wraps, but when they are not sticking as well, I just don't use them and then they just sit there. But I need to be using them, so I need to just give them a little refresh. It'll probably take me an hour to get everything out and get my surface protected, but it's totally worth it. I know I will appreciate using them, so that's an easy win that I should be able to do. Number 13 is to create my own designs using punch needle. I have made a couple of projects now using punch needle. It is such a fun and satisfying process. I really enjoy the feel and the sound of the punch of the needle going through. I love the effect of it. I love the look of it. And I have seen some really impressive, really cool, creative things that people have done creating real pieces of art with punch needle. I have now got a punch needle set that has like a different length of the needle, so you can get some thicker and thinner parts of the yarn coming through. I have so many yarn scraps from previous punch needle projects, but also previous knitting projects, and I feel like they are just waiting for something to be done with them. I do have a big piece of fabric. It's like the correct size of hole for the punch needle so that I know that it will work, that I want to make a cushion from. But I'd also be curious to try making bags, again, like wall hangings, artwork, that kind of thing. I feel like there's a lot of potential, and I just want to start to have a little bit of a play around and a dabble with making some things in punch needle. Number 14 is to knit a hat. Now this is a goal that has been carried over for 2 years running. I'm hoping this is the year that it's gonna happen. For various reasons, I haven't been able to do it before, but I feel like I'm in a position where I can have a go with doing it. Now I actually have a hat that I had started that I was hoping to make. I wanna say it was called the Pacific Rainforest hat by Pippin Pin. I'll pop it up on the screen, I could be wrong. That is a really beautiful design. However, I kinda have gone off of it. It looks like a relatively complicated thing to do, but there is a YouTube tutorial showing you how to do the actual like teardrop element. But the problem I have is that when I was looking at the instructions, I felt like the written instructions compared to like the yarn chart, I think that's what you call a chart, a map, a grid, an image of what you're meant to be doing with the knitting, the two things didn't seem to correlate. And I sent a message to the designer over on Instagram asking for her advice, just double checking which one was correct, 'cause I don't want to do a whole thing wrong. And she didn't reply to me. She read my message. She's been posting loads of other things on Instagram, and it just kind of bummed me out, to be honest. At the same time, also, I feel like maybe if it's my first ever hat, maybe I need to start with something a little bit more simple. So I've decided instead I'm going to make the Oslo hat by Petite Knit, which is much more simple. I am going to add a little pom-pom on top. I actually have a couple of pom-poms. One I want to use that's like a really fluffy one that I've been told doesn't do very well getting wet. But I also want to make a pom-pom out of the same yarn, and I have a pom-pom maker that's really fun to play with. Now, what I've decided I want to do is basically give myself the option of swapping them out. So my plan is to make like a little snap on top that I can change out my pom-pom if it's rainy or depending on the style that I'm going for. Maybe it's a little bit wacky, but I think it'll be quite fun. And I know that that color of yarn that I have already will go well with the other like coats that I have in my wardrobe. So I think it'll be a fun project to do. I don't think it should be too bad now that I've picked a more simple pattern. So I'm hoping I can get that one done. Number 15 is to write 5 haiku that I'm really proud of. I really do love haiku. I love poetry in general, but I particularly like haiku. I feel like there's something about it. There's like, it's very zen-y, it's very hard to describe, but like a feeling when haiku hits you in the right place. And I have dabbled with writing haiku before. There was something that I was working on in the last, probably last couple of months in the last year, but I never was fully 100% happy with what I was writing. I feel like I just want to spend a little bit more time here and there playing around with writing haiku. I have a notebook that I got in Rye when I was visiting Merchant and Mills that is covered with the cover is like a kantha quilt. It's made with recycled textiles for the paper. And I had the idea that that would be a really nice one to put some poetry in that I've written. And so I want to make a point to write some haiku. When I feel really happy with what I've written, I will be able to put them in that notebook. And to me, that's like the peak, the pinnacle to know that it's reached the level that I think is acceptable to go in the notebook. So I'm hoping to get at least 5 of those. I may do more. I'll share them if I do write any. But it just seems like a fun little thing to do in my downtime. Number 16 is another one that I carried over from last year, make a fancy cake for no reason. Now I have done this one. In 2020, it was one of my goals, and I made a fancy cake and it was so much fun. I bake a lot more for others usually, and usually for somebody's birthday, and so I'm baking very much to their specifications, their wants, their desires. And I really like cake baking and cake decorating, and I want to just do it one day because I feel like it. So I'm hoping this year I'm going to do it. Number 17 is to make soft pretzels. Again, I like baking bread. I love soft pretzels, but I have a very hard time finding good soft pretzels in the UK. And I feel like that would be a fun and interesting project, something a bit different to make. So watch this space. I think it will be a fun one to do at some point in 2025. Number 18 is to complete a jigsaw puzzle a month. I really like jigsaw puzzles. Sometimes I forget about them, but whenever I remember them and I do them, I get very into it and I get very addicted to working on them. I like the idea of having a jigsaw puzzle on the go most of the time. So that way, if I do have a bit of downtime and I want to do something very relaxing, very meditative, I can sit and do a jigsaw puzzle for a little while. I have a good collection of jigsaw puzzles. I'm not going to buy a new one for every month, but I did get one for Christmas. It's probably going to be my January one. But it's just a nice relaxing activity, something that often my husband and I will sit and do together, just chilling out. And I feel like I need to reuse the jigsaw puzzles that I have, because I have some ones that I absolutely love and I always really enjoy putting together. So one a month seems like a fun and reasonable goal. Usually doesn't take me too long once I get started on them. So we'll see if I manage to get 12 done throughout the year. Number 19 may sound familiar to some of you guys. I want to master my ultimate chai latte. Now, last year in 2024, my goal was to master my ultimate chai recipe. So chai being like Indian tea with spices and milk. And I did actually find what I feel is my perfect chai recipe. I did talk about it in a video. I'll put a link to up here, and I'll also put where the timing of that is if you want to skip to that particular portion of the video. I really do enjoy chai. I love a chai latte though as well, which is not the same. So chai lattes generally will usually be made with like a concentrated chai mix, and it has frothy milk. It's not the same, but I love both. And I have definitely not had a lot of experience with making any kind of latte. I have a little milk frother thing. If you guys have any tips, tricks, suggestions for that kind of thing, please do let me know. But I'm going to be doing some experimenting with figuring out how I can turn my ultimate chai recipe into the ultimate chai latte. Number 20 is Year of Burton. So my husband and I went to the Design Museum in London to see the Tim Burton exhibition at the end of last year. Really enjoyed it. So there is definitely a very specific, very unique style to Tim Burton's directing. I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest Tim Burton fangirl, but I actually feel like going to the exhibition, understanding a little bit more of his background, where he's coming from, the kinds of things that he kind of got obsessed with, I feel like I've appreciated him now on a deeper level, and I'm really curious to go back and watch a lot of his older works. There are quite a few things that he has actually worked on that I didn't realize he was a part of, like the live action Dumbo, for example. I think it'll be fun to just work through his whole catalog, and then I can sort of see and compare and contrast different things throughout. My husband's into it too. I think it would be a fun project for us to do gradually, working through watching his movies throughout this year. Number 21 is to complete Prana, a 7-day yoga journey from the Yoga With Adriene YouTube channel. Usually Adriene does a 30-day yoga challenge, but this year she's just doing a 7-day one. I've already started. I've done day 1 already, and I am looking forward to going through the full 7 days. I do often work through her 30-day yoga journeys at various times throughout the year, not necessarily every single day for the 30 days, and I'm not committing to do this necessarily over a 7-day period. I might miss some days and then do one, a day or two late. But I do always really enjoy her new yoga journeys, and I'm looking forward to doing Prana this year. Let me know if you guys are doing it as well. Number 22 is to find cardio exercise that works for me. I love my yoga, and that is like my main form of exercise, but I know for my body, especially as I'm getting older, it's so important to also do some good cardio exercise. So I want to try out some different things and find something that I really enjoy, because things that I've done in the past, I just haven't loved them, and so I didn't want to keep up with them. So I'm going to see what I can do. I'll let you guys know if I find something that I like, but I need a solution to this one. Something hopefully that's fun. Number 23 is another one that I've carried over from last year, which is to visit Kew Gardens in the daytime. My husband and I have been regularly going to the Kew Gardens. It's the Royal Botanical Gardens in London Christmas lights. They do incredible lights at Christmas time. It's very majestic, very fun to walk around. But I feel like I'm only seeing a sliver of actual Kew Gardens. And I know it's a beautiful Royal Botanical Garden. I know that it's quite world renowned. I need to see it when I can actually see what's going on. I want to go there and see blossoms. I want to go there and see the orchid exhibitions. I want to see changing leaves in the autumn. I could go so many times a year, but if I can at least make it there in the daytime once this year, I will be happy. I may even go more than once if I'm lucky, but I think it would be a really fun thing to do for sure. Didn't manage to do it last year. Hopefully this year will be the time. Number 24 is one that I have periodically put on my list for the years, and it is to spend a day by the sea. This was not on my goals for last year, but it was on the previous year. I think this is probably the 3rd time it's turned up on the list, because I know for myself, and I'm sure many of you guys can relate, being by the ocean, by the sea, seeing and hearing those waves lapping, it is one of the most relaxing, grounding, wonderful things that I can do for myself. And I know I always come away feeling refreshed, like I've had a good reset. But it's one of those things that, because I'm not that close, it's like an hour drive down to the south coast of England. It's really not that bad. But when you're busy with other things in life, it just kind of falls by the wayside, and I just don't do it. But I know that whenever I do, I love it. So if I put it on the list, it's much more likely to happen. So I think it'll happen this year. I will spend a nice day by the sea and I'm sure I will love it. Number 25, because it is my 25 for 2025 and I'm going to be cute about it, is to read 25 books. Now, I really love reading, but it is definitely one of those things that I sometimes just don't do very much in a year if I'm busy with other things. I do like doing creative things as well, and often that just kind of takes my attention. But I know that when I read, I enjoy reading, and so I need to remind myself that it's something that I'd like to do. The other thing I want to do with my reading is to really pretty much always have a book on the go that I can easily pick up and read if I'm having a downtime at home, if I'm having a moment where I'm just like in between things rather than just looking at my phone as the default. I know that when I have a book available that I'm taking around from room to room with me, I'm much more likely to pick it up and I get through the books much more quickly. The other thing that I know for myself is if I go to the library, I'm somebody who will inevitably come away with like 2, 3, maybe 4 books because I get excited and I'm like, oh, I want to read this, I want to read that. And I have a deadline. And because I have a deadline, I will power through those books. I know that I work through those books really quickly. So I probably will be taking some trips to the library this year. But for sure, one way or another, I would love to get through 25 books. If I don't get through 25, that's cool. But it would be fun if I could. If you guys have any recommendations for your favorite books, please let me know in the comments down below. I gotta be honest, I'm kind of a picky reader. I tend to like more like literary things. I like magic realism. I like a lot of old classic literature. If you have any suggestions of things kind of in that realm that you really like, or you think somebody who reads those things might like, hit me up. Let me know of your suggestions. Definitely looking to maybe branch out and read some things a little bit more different, a little bit more interesting. Hopefully I can get through 25 this year, but if not, one way or another, I'm sure I will have fun getting as far as I do get. So there we are, my 25 for 2025 goals. I think I've got some good ones on there. I will be keeping you guys updated. I tend to update on these lists when I do my monthly makes roundups. So I do have a November, December monthly makes video that will be coming soon that will be kind of the final roundup of my 24 for 2024 list. So if you are interested to see how I get on with these goals, keep an eye out for my January makes video. I'll be sharing an update how I got on with the beginning of the year. I do really enjoy having these kinds of positive suggestions for myself of things that I would like to do. Like I said before, I would love to hear what you guys are hoping to do this year, whether it's like a 25 list or whether just general resolutions or just things that you feel like you want to do in the year. I know loads of people who have like a word for the year, which I think is a really fun thing. Haven't done that. Can't say I want to do it this year, but who knows? Maybe another year I might do. But hearing about what you guys are hoping and planning for the year always makes me feel really inspired as well. And I know other people really enjoy reading other people's comments as well. So please do throw them down in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed hearing what I'm planning to do for the year. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel to see how I get on with my goals. And I will see you guys very soon. Bye!